Buckingham Palace. How were you attracted to that position? Were you
Well,
recruited?
Buckingham Palace came as a real surprise, and it was actually the story I told at the class that I just got this call one day from this guy with a French accent, and he said, I'm the head chef at Buckingham Palace, and you've won all these gold awards doing pastry work, and I've read about it, and you're only very young, but I'd like you to come and do some work here. We've got lots of events coming up and we need some help in the pastry. And I was like, yeah, okay, who is it? Which friend's messing me around? Eventually I found that it was him. So really it was an invitation. And I thought afterwards, you don't really get invited to work there, so it was quite an honour. So that's how I got into the palace working, and I worked in the Royal Pastry Kitchens, and the rest really is history. It's a fantastic experience, amazing.
And you want to share the story about the pot that you shared with us during the cooking class? How you...
off the wall.
That's such a good story.
The interesting thing, in the pastry department, it's very, very small room, because in the palace there's more chefs cooking for staff than there is actually cooking for the royal family. So in the pastry department there was only two of us working. But from my first day in there, I was looking around the walls, and all around the top of the walls were all these copper jello molds, and they fascinated me because they're all different shapes and sizes. And one day we had a free time, and I just went towards one, and I picked it up, and the chef turned and said, "Oh, be careful!" And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he helped me take it down, and it was dusty and dirty and so on. But they never get used; they're just there for like decoration. And he said, "Have a look at it." So I was looking at it. If I remember, it was in the shape of almost like a castle type shape. And he said, "Look on the side." And I looked on the side, and there was a stamp. And he said, "Every one of those is from different monarchs." And the one I was looking at was Henry VIII. So I'm holding this thing that at some point, all those hundreds of years ago, had been used to create food for a banquet. Eaten by the king. I mean, it was just like, oh no, I gave it back to him. I didn't want to drop it. So yeah, fascinating. I mean, that's just a small bit of the experience there.
And you also talked about garden parties and preparing for the garden parties.
Yeah,
was your specialty while you were there, was it pastry?
Yeah,
pastry,
pastry, but also often because the royal family, when they ate by them, so sometimes the Queen would just eat by herself. Prince Philip was out about doing something, the kids weren't there or whatever, so she would just eat by herself. So very often we would cook the whole meal for her, or if it was a friend and so on, in the pastry kitchen, because it was so small and we could just control everything. But garden parties were a different matter. They were for hundreds of people, and you could sometimes see it on a news flash and so on that the Queen's having a garden party, and there's invitations to not necessarily elite people, it's just people that have done things special in the country, a bit like they do at the White House. They have that garden party at the White House. That's where I think that idea came from. And we would spend days making little fancy pastries and tea sandwiches, and they'd be making all these homemade lemonades and so on. And it was just really lots of waiters walking around with silver trays, handing out tea sandwiches, and people would go to tables and take all these different lovely pastries and so on, and just mingle. And she would come out, and again, a bit like the president's wife would come out and just sort of walk around, mingle with a few people, and just disappear again. It was just a fact. I think that people could say, "I've got an invitation to a garden,"
And what was the Queen's favourite pastry? Did she actually help you with preparing the menu for this?
She never came in. The two people that used to pop into the kitchen now and again was Prince Charles, and I wasn't there when he was very young, but the chefs told me when he was very young, he was almost like troublesome. He would come in, because he was bored. I mean, how can you be bored? But he's bored. And he would come into the kitchen sometimes and sort of hang around with the chef, watching what they were doing, and they'd have to sort of give him something to do. And but the Queen never. Prince Philip, every now and again, we'd know he'd come into the kitchen late at night. And I don't know if he'd had a few scotches or something, I don't know, but he was hungry, and he used to make a dish that I'm actually going to do at the show for everyone to taste, and it's like a mushrooms in a cream sauce. You had that? Remember those?
That was fantastic.
Yeah. So that was one of his dishes that he really liked. And I made the mistake of not going and just arriving to be told that if you use a pan there, then this one over here is not going to work. And this oven will only work for half an hour on hot. And then all these sort of things. So I find out exactly what is there. Then normal practice is for me to talk to people about likes and dislikes. And once I've got the dislikes, which is the main thing, then they just leave it to me, and I will write 2 or 3 menus that I think are balanced and seasonal vegetables, because I make everything, so I don't go and buy desserts or everything's made. And then I'll send a sample of maybe 3 menus, and then they'll email me back and say, we really like menu 1, but could we have dessert off menu 3 instead? And then once that's done, people just forget about the whole event, because if they want it, I have a young lady that works with me, and she'll help lay the table, she serves the food, and then she helps to clean up. So everything is in the kitchen is washed, clean, dried, put away, and we just disappear. So people often call me the next day and say, the kitchen was cleaner in the morning than when we left it with you, So, it's a nice little service.
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. And are there certain themes that you like? Like you do French style, Spanish?
Yeah, I suppose because I'm classically French trained, but I love Italian food. When I say to people I like Italian food, the immediate reaction, you like pasta? Yeah, I like pasta, but I'd never order pasta in a restaurant because it's something so easy to do at home. I like what I call the other side of Italian food, the meat, the fish dishes and so on that you find in sort of the backwoods of Italy. That's the sort of Italian food I like. And I've worked with a lot of Italians and they've taught me lots of different dishes. But usually the menus that I do, I did a party for, it was 21 people on one evening, and it was in LaGrange, and afterwards they called me out to introduce myself. I just said, obviously I'm not from this part of the woods, and they said, we can tell by the food. So most of my thing is European fine dining, and I think because it's quite unique, there's not many restaurants or other people that cook in that sort of style of food, so they get something fairly unique that they might have to go to New York for, maybe a good restaurant in Vegas or something, so they're getting something special in their own home. And often the business will call me and say, I've got some guests coming in from overseas, we're going to talk some real heavy business, and I don't really want to be in a restaurant where people can hear, even the waiter can hear what's happening, so they'd rather have it at their home, but they want to impress the guests, so I'll go and cook the meal, and then they know my ears are shut anyway, so yeah, there's lots of different aspects to things I do.